Hello guys, Bran here and welcome to another developer update thoughts video. I like to do these every single time one of these come out because, well, usually I'm just going to get asked how I feel about it either way, no matter what video I put out, so might as well make a video directly addressing those things. Anyways, this one's a pretty big one. Sometimes these developer updates and these mid-chapters don't have a whole lot in them, but this one has some pretty substantial changes, which is kind of crazy. It feels like we just got our latest chapter and we're already here, but hey. It's TBD, things keep rolling, so let's go ahead and get into it. The biggest change probably coming out of the mid-chapter that's coming up here is the Night update. Night is finally receiving some pretty substantial changes. Unfortunately, a lot of these don't really include how clunky and buggy the character is. It's mostly just kind of changes that are focused on improving the character's quality of life, which we will take those, but there's some cool things and there's some concerns here, and there's genuinely so much that they changed for both the characters we're going to be talking about that it's going to be hard to cover it all. I'm not going to be reading every individual line, but I will be covering the big stuff. So yeah, the biggest new Night change is the fact that he can now manually switch between his guards, which is interesting because this is something that I've seen most of the community very aggressively rejoicing, because now he's going to function more like Vecna, where he can just kind of pick whatever guard is best for each situation. But most Night mains that I follow and I'm interested in that main the character actually aren't like a huge fan of this change. They like the way that you are forced as the Night to try and apply the specific strengths of each guard to different situations. So obviously the right answer in most cases of like a very strong pallet is just drop Carnifex, break the pallet, walk through, but you always have access to Carnifex even if you use the axe head, which gives you double. So you have to figure out how to use Assassin or the Jailer to try and handle a strong pallet that way. You can do stuff like forcing the guard to break the pallet and use the long pallet breaking animation to prevent the survivor from vaulting back over when you take another loop. Creative stuff like that. But now you can just pick whatever's the best. And I like what Pixie said about it, was that it's kind of just like Vecna. Again, we got little Vecna Jr. out here. I kind of had a funky feeling that by putting through the Vecna changes of swapping between powers like that they were kind of testing something for Night. So it's kind of interesting to see that come to fruition. But we'll have to see how that pans out. This could be really fun and make them way more accessible for the average player, but could take away some creative depth to the character as well. The biggest changes that are coming through that may be of concern for Night players or people that are interested in playing the Night is dropping a Night at your feet to just cut somebody off in the middle of a loop and sandwich them is, as a playstyle, is very much being nerfed into the dirt and will probably not be viable come the mid-chapter. Patrol paths must at least be 10 meters in length before you can drop the guard now, so you can't just like drop them at your feet like you used to. And now when you're trying to sandwich a survivor that you're chasing, the closer you get to your own guard within 8 meters, the hunt timer goes down 3 times faster. So if you're trying and attempting to sandwich somebody, which is kind of like, despite how boring it is, kind of the main gameplay function of the character, now you're going to be punished for that. So that's kind of going the way of the dodo. And people have a lot of feelings about that already. You know, obviously Survivor mains are rejoicing, and a lot of Night mains are not too happy about that, because that is just one of the things that the character does do. So there have been some very substantial changes to the guards themselves. The devs have proclaimed that Carnifex was kind of an army Swiss knife, kind of good in most situations. Carnifex was never a bad choice, and obviously since they're going for more of a pick the right guard for a situation sort of gameplay, they're going to make the Carnifex a little less advantageous, cutting his hunt time in half, but buffing everybody else's to try and make it to where you can't just use Carnifex as a one-size-fits-all guard. But they're also adding, thankfully, which is a very clamored for change for quite some time, is that Map of the Realm and Pillage Mead are becoming base kit, or at least partially so, because that is something that ever since this character's been out, people have been running Map of the Realm at least every single game, because everybody's like, well, without it, this character is pretty abysmal. So we're glad that they're adding those things. And in general, a lot of Night mains talk about how their add-ons are not too thrilling. So having more add-on choices once they rework the add-ons an adjustment as well would be nice. Next, getting some extremely massive updates is the Singularity, and a lot of people are very happy about this, and once again, a lot of people are a little bit upset about some things. So let's go ahead and get into these. There's kind of like a weird effect. The one that kind of concerns me the most is the first one off here, which is taking control of a biopod when I directly aim at the nearest survivor in line of sight. Not only is this removing some skill expression from the character, but it's also like not always the best situation, right? Because there's plenty of add-ons in the game like Blight's Placebo Tablet that does this exact thing where it's supposed to auto-aim at the survivor for you. But if you've used that add-on, often aiming directly at the survivor is not actually what you want to get the most out of your power. So people don't end up using those kind of add-ons. So now that this is going to be forced on you in your base kit, we'll have to see how it plays, but that makes me nervous because of the performance of add-ons on similar killers that do this already in the game. One change I do like is that the biopod does no longer highlight a survivor if they can't be targeted, because that happens a lot when I play this character, and it makes me absolutely frustrated where somebody's glowing white. They seem like they're clearly in field of view, but they're like partially behind a bush, or like their left leg is behind the wall, but the rest of their body is visible. But the the game will not let you actually, slipstream the survivor. So you just stand there staring at them in the camera, trying to get them slipstreamed, and it's actually not possible to stream them there. So, but they're still highlighted. So I'm glad that they are giving you a very big visual indicator that, yeah, they're partially visible, but you can actually slipstream them. So stop wasting so much time on that. There's some cool changes in here. The add-on that allowed you to hear audio in your biopods is now base kit, so now they do kind of function basically just like security cameras, which is really neat, and I think airs itself to the aesthetic of the character very, very well, or design it. Yeah. They also added the ability that you can control your currently controlled biopod, which just does not work while it is deactivated. But I think this is really neat because, especially for me who likes Singularity but does not play them like a lot, that my biopod placement could use some work sometimes. Sometimes it's pretty good, pretty great, and other times it's not. So if I am in a biopod and I understand like, this is not high enough to get a good vantage point, or this is just in an odd space, I could just blow it up remotely instead of having to walk over to it, which is going to be nice. This next change is the one that kind of like scares me a lot, and hopefully I'm just overreacting to it, is that Singularity now receives Killer Instinct when a survivor is slipstreamed. Killer Instinct is a very, very strong effect, giving you the exact location of survivors. I know this is supposed to be, as they put in the dev note, supposed to kind of decrease the disorientation of people switching between Singularity and slipstreaming people, but yeah, that's Killer Instinct's really, really good, and to get that on a slipstream survivor is I don't know. I feel like that's really, really good. And I don't know if the character even necessarily needs that, because the character's already really, really good once you get really, really good at them. So having this on top of it just kind of feels unnecessary. But behavior in true behavior fashion, their go-to thing is to add haste to things. If you're familiar as why they're adding haste onto this, is because this is a partial base kit of Soma Family Photo, which is kind of seen by Singularity mains as like the base kit add-on, kind of their map of the realm, so to speak, that they have to run every single game to make things better for them. This is just kind of the thing they do, where it's like if an add-on is run too much, we just end up splitting it half and half with the base kit and have you run the add-on if you want the full effect again. That's just kind of what they do. So that is what they're doing here. I do think it's really strange they added this extra part of like being stunned by perks now removes overclock. It just seems so unnecessary. I don't know why that's there, but hey, it is what it is. This Lex part also feels like really unnecessary for a character that's already really, really good, and a character that obviously gets a lot of its positive reputation from having a very, very high skill floor and a high skill ceiling as well. It's that now you get an added aim assist while shooting a slipstream survivor, and when creating biopods. I think it's interesting because, like I said, the whole point of this character is like very hard to learn, very hard to master, but when you do, it's super satisfying. So just adding this like hand-holdy kind of effect to the power that's already really good, you just have to spend time on it, is just like, I don't know. I feel like at a certain point, some of these changes are starting to like go into the territory of like the character's losing its identity as the high skill character that's super fun once you get used to them, because they're just trying to make them more accessible to everyone, but as a result, kind of taking away some of the appeal and prestige of actually being good at the character. So This next change I actually like a lot, because one of the things that is particularly annoying on Larry, no matter how good or bad you are at the character, is that EMPs are just kind of like always around. And it's kind of like one of those things where any survivor that's even moderately competent on how to counter Larry will just constantly have these EMPs and constantly be using them, and it's really frustrating. But now EMPs do not any longer just passively print to 100%. They will now stop at 97, at least forcing survivors to finish the last 3%. This will definitely tone down the saturation of the EMPs in each game, has made it to where it requires a little bit more of survivor interaction instead of just running over and picking the things up. I like that as a change, because the EMPs definitely need to be there and do definitely need to be strong, because that is like this character, when played right, has like they're very, very good. But it did feel like, especially with the EMPs printing passively, that they were just kind of always available, and it felt more like the survivors weren't playing well when they weren't using them, and not that I was playing right. So now this requires a little bit more of input on their regard, so I do like that. There's one potentially very, very a thing that makes me kind of anxious, is that they are taking away some of the anti-camp aspects that are in Singularity's base kit. Now switching back to Singularity when you're near a hooked survivor is now just 1.5 seconds instead of 5. I do understand that there's the anti-camp system, but I'm sure if you play Killer enough, you know, you've probably already learned how to circumvent the anti-camp system pretty well. It's there as a deterrent for people who just want to face camp, but that's kind of it. Camping is definitely still strong and definitely still a thing. It's just face camping isn't as good anymore. So we'll have to see how this one plays out. Next, we're going to be getting into the perks. You're going to be noticing two particular themes, is that we're buffing aura perks, we're buffing healing perks, and durations are being pulled down across the board. Darkness Field now lasts longer. I'm all yours, lower cooldown. Trail Torment, lower cooldown. Oppression, lower cooldown. This one's probably the one that needed it the most. Oppression is not a bad perk. It's just the fact that it goes on cooldown for 80 seconds is a very long time. It goes down on cooldown for almost the full length of a gen. Like, it's not worth bringing. But now it's down to 40 seconds. It desperately needed that. Dragon's Grip is now down to 40. It's been halved. Machine Learning is kind of an odd one, and increased the duration of the effect to a full minute. Machine Learning's problem is not any duration issues. It's the fact that it's so hard to get it to activate that it's not worth even bringing it. So it still retains the fact that it's like so hard to activate. It's just like, well, once you finally get to activate it, it's better now. It's like, okay, cool, neat, awesome. Now we get to the healing stuff. Autodidact is getting its decrease starting skill check penalty down to 15% instead of 25, which is very, very nice. That means that that starting part of Autodidact, where you're really struggling and kind of almost being a hindrance to your team until you get better at the end, is not as severe. It's very, very funny, because I've had situations like that happen with Autodidact, and I'll be trying to pick up a slug and this happens. Very stressful. So that's not going to be as severe. Empathetic Connection, I feel like, was already a very, very nice underrated perk, because it did highlight people to you. So you're like kind of like the traveling medic. But now the healing component of 10% speed is now up to 30. So it makes it even more healing. Keep in mind, though, that medkits are not being adjusted at all this mid-chapter update, which is kind of concerning, because medkits are already like the strongest survivor item. So that, in tandem with all these healing perks being adjusted, means that people are going to be healing in like no time flat, which, you know, across the board increases chase time, because all of the chase times are going to be 2 health states. So that is a measurable buff to the survivor role in general. So that may be something we have to monitor. Iron Will is probably the biggest perk change coming out of this mid-chapter PTB. It is, in a sense, almost being fully reverted. People are saying that old Iron Will is just back at its full capacity. It still has the aspect, well, if you're exhausted, you don't get to use Iron Will. That is still a thing, which was not a thing on old Iron Will. So no, Iron Will is not back to what it was. If you still run it in tandem with an exhaustion perk, that it does not function while you're exhausted. So that is still important to take away here. But Iron Will is still being reverted back to 100%. So your grunts of pain are reduced by 100% while you're injured. This change, I liked old Iron Will. I ran it a lot. It's a very, very fun perk. I didn't use it to rat. I just used it to be a little bit more ambiguous about where I was looping. But I think DBD has a lot of like tracking bugs right now, which are very unfortunate. Scratch marks are spawning late right now, which makes it really, really hard to track survivors. In addition, sometimes when you go behind walls, the audio, instead of going from to normal to like muffled is instead just going completely silent as if it's already this iron will anyways. So just introducing more of that while we have so many like game issues with tracking right now seems kind of like a bad timing, but it will be nice to have another fun perk to run on Survivor, but I think it's generally just bad timing until we fix how tracking is bugged in a lot of ways right now, period. More healing stuffs that's really fun. Resurgence is going from 50% up to 70. Same with Solidarity. So healing being buffed across the board, and also perks that reward you for healing. Babysitter is the one that's kind of scary here, because Babysitter is a fun perk, but not tremendously a good one. Babysitter, what it does is when you unhook somebody, you protect them, so they get haste and you hide their pools of blood for 8 seconds. But that's being buffed all the way to 30 seconds. Whoa. Trust me. Combating tunneling, I get the mindset behind it, but 30 seconds? 30. We didn't up this to 16 seconds. We didn't just double it. Like, we went all the way to 30. I think we need to pump the brakes. That is a substantial change, a crazy strong change. I would kind of stabilize the numbers here. That is like haste. Once again, we were talking about earlier about how like haste is just really strong, and the game is kind of built and balanced around how survivors are supposed to be 100% speed, and the only times that breaks is when they're using specific perks. Adding something that gives you haste for 30 whole seconds. Holy moly, that is whew. I think we need to temper the numbers here a bit. One of the other huge changes, and probably the last big change on here, is that hooks now respawn. Yep, that's been a change that's been recommended in DBD's like whole history for a really long time, is that when you kill somebody on a hook, when they are sacrificed, the hook goes away forever. But now that's going to be no longer a thing. Now hooks will respawn after 60 seconds. I'm sure you guys have run into a lot of situations where a survivor tries to run to the comp corner or tries to intentionally run to zones where they know hooks have been destroyed, specifically so they can just force a bleed out. And if they have Addy or Unbreakable, they can just force you into a lose-lose situation as killer, which just generally doesn't feel good. So now after 60 seconds, hooks will respawn. So you're not going to be running as much into those situations anymore. I hear a lot of survivor mains are very like upset about this, but honestly, if you're trying to force drops in dead zones and wanting to bleed out in the corner for 4 minutes, that I don't think you're playing the most healthy way for the game anyways. Like, I get that you're very much wanting like another like second chance, like a, hey, I can outplay the killer by doing this, but I feel like for the health of the game, it's like it creates a very nasty and unfun and unhealthy situation to not be able to hook somebody even though you successfully won the chase, and you just get to wiggle off just cause. Like, it doesn't feel good for the health of the game. So I'm glad that this change is coming through. Also, ending off on a not so positive note, for at least for me, Yamaoka Estate and Mount Ormond are getting extra variations. Yamaoka I don't mind as a map. It can get more variations. Ormond I do not like. Ormond, despite the fact that it's not the most survivor-sided map in the game anymore like it used to be, Mount Ormond is still a very nasty map, probably one of the best maps for balanced landing in the game. Very high pallet spawns. It's just not a fun map to play on. Even when I play on Survivor, I feel like it's really strong, so I don't have the most fun because I feels like unless I get caught out by like the ski lift over there, like it feels like I like always have something to work with, and I'm never like losing because like I'm never winning as Survivor because I'm playing well. There's just a lot to work with on Ormond no matter where you go, especially since they removed that rock wall at the front of the map, which used to be kind of a dead zone. Now there's just pallets there. Like I don't like Ormond at all, so the fact that they're adding more Ormond variations, I'm just not looking forward to that. So that's cool. Hopefully it's like Groaning Storehouse and the other Macmillan maps where the variations just make the map way more playable and way nicer and way more balanced. If they do it that way, yeah. But if it ends up like Batum where there's just 5 Batums and they're all just varying levels of this sucks, like I'm not looking forward to that. But this video's already been long enough, and these are all the changes. Some pretty substantial stuff coming through, some stuff to be very excited about, and some other things that are kind of to be worried about. What are you most excited about, and what are you most worried about in the developer update? Let me know down in the comments below. That's gonna be it for this very long-winded video. Thank you so much for watching today, friends, but I do upload daily, so I will see you tomorrow. But if I do not, I will see you when I see you. Goodbye.